without getting too deep into the weeds on data, it sounds like that seems to be a big push currently. We knew in the past, and I think you and Wes and others might have said this, that there are sort of 5 basic categories that all of them are pretty much asking. Number one, can you reiterate that for our viewers? And number two, do you think data might be another category that they're going to start to add to these?
Yeah, so I'll start with the top kind of 5. I would say there's kind of 2 categories here. There's MFA, which is, if you don't have and we're gonna get questions on this, I'm sure. Where do you mean MFA, right? And that's one of the questions on the app. Some carriers are just saying, "Do you have MFA?" And it's like, well, yes, but where? Then you have other carriers saying, "Hey, where is MFA on all? Do they have MFA on all these things?" And then they start asking about things like routers and switches and stuff that's like really confusing. So again, data collection versus not being very clear on what the heck you're asking, and you get these 2 broad camps. But MFA is an important part. We can talk through all the specifics on that, but then you've got security awareness training because, and I share this stat a lot, 83%, actually it might have gone down. It went down 1 percentage point. Found that out yesterday. The Verizon report came out, 82% of incidents are due to the human element. So them clicking a link, them falling for credit or gift card scams, all that kind of fun stuff, right? So you run into that one. So security awareness training, carriers are looking at percentages and they're saying, if they're not taking the time to accurately train themselves, are they really going to be a good risk? Probably not. So that's a big one. Backup solutions. Now, depending on the size of the company, you could be looking at something like just segregated backups, so they're not on the network, which to some carriers, things like tapes are okay, which, who even uses those anymore, but still a thing, right? Oh, all right, Tim, there you go. So tapes. But then on the other hand, immutable backups, right? So once that backup is made, it cannot be altered. And that's a so it could vary. That's good. It could vary depending on the size of the business, the risk of the business, things like that. And then you have things like next gen antivirus.
Whitelisting, even vulnerability management, they're starting to get a little more specific and like add a couple more things to the list. I know you have the, what do you call it, the Lord of the apps.
Yep.
So it might not be across the board. Maybe not all applications are asking for it, but some of the things are kind of, there's a trend, right? So some of these new controls. So
yeah, our system, without getting into too many details, it's basically an evolving form because the actual things that are being required are consistently being asked about, right? So, hey, this is being asked about now, but maybe next year they're adding a new thing that we want to make sure people are aware of, so that if we're going through this, it's like, here are your non-negotiables. You need to have these in place. So yeah, but patching solutions and vulnerability management is a weird one. And I don't know MSPs, if you're on the call, listening in, I'm sure at some point you've run into those external vulnerability scans that carriers are doing, where it's, they they ping an IP address or they ping a URL and they find all these flags and issues and they say, well, we're not taking on this risk because you have this port open or something like that. And there are certain ports that, they will not write a policy if that port's open. But there's other ones where that's where being able to talk to the carrier a little bit and say, hey, let's talk about what this is all about and what these are doing. So there is that, but being able to patch those vulnerabilities is huge. That's one of those non-negotiable things. If you can't patch, if your patching solution isn't, carriers are saying 30 days or less. I like to say MSPs try to do less than that. Come on, you can not 30 days, especially for critical patches, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, carriers are saying if you're not able to patch your critical and high security vulnerabilities within 30 days, we're not touching that risk.
But
Interesting.
But they're really looking at they're doing like an external scan, right? Like a almost uninvited scan, right? Like when they're looking at, they're not actually putting agents on machines and digging in and
not yet.
Yeah,
they will be. Yeah.